Hey, welcome back. Do you have a school board member that is meeting with other leaders in your school district without including you? Do you have a rogue school board member who is marching to his or her own drum beat? Are you worried at all that school board members are talking about you behind your back? Well, this episode is for you. Trust me, I've been there and I know the stress of what that feels like. In this episode, I'm going to share strategies with you of how to allow the school board to play in the game while still using their superintendent as the conduit for success. Welcome to Super Insights. I am so glad you're here. Let's go. I've had the fortunate opportunity to frequently travel around the country to work with superintendents and to speak to large groups of aspiring leaders in the public education field. Anytime I get the chance to work with a superintendent, I always ask, how is your relationship with your school board? And many times I hear grumbles and gripes, mainly because the superintendent is feeling the stress and pressures of working with rogue school board members, or there's tension that exists between the relationship of the superintendent and its school board members. I also see all over the national news complete board member turnover, which on a dime changes the pendulum of political ideologies. And in some cases, the sole purpose of their election is to terminate the current school district superintendent. This job can be very scary, and the superintendency lives in a very cutthroat world. There's over 13,000 school district superintendents in the United States of America, and we are all just one board election away from career uncertainty. But the relationship between a superintendent and their school board really needs to be seen as a system. And in all honesty, and just to boil it down to its purest simplicity, all the school board members want is they want to play in the game. They want to touch the system. They want to feel the system. They want to appear as if they're doing their job of school board member and representing their systems. And so I'm excited to share with you today 3 specific strategies that I use that allows our school board to play in the game, to be visible, to be able to speak knowledgeably about their school district while using me, their one employee, as the single conduit of how they flow in and out of our school district organization, allowing them to feel fulfilled in their work and fulfilled in their engagement into the school district, while still leveraging me as the one person to go through, the one-stop shop in order for them to feel successful and fulfilled as individual school board members. And the first thing that you have to do each and every single year is establish the guidelines of what the role of the school board member is inside the organization, as well as establish the very clear guidelines of what the role and expectations of what the superintendent will do for the board inside the organization as well. And so each and every single year, it doesn't matter how many years you are the superintendent of the school district, it doesn't matter how many years your school board team has been on the board consecutively, it doesn't matter if you have new people or not, at the beginning of every single year, I strongly encourage you to establish a board superintendent working relationship document. Inside this document, you really need to have 5 specific sections. The first section talks about the relationship between the school board and their superintendent. The second section talks about the role of board leadership. I'm talking about the chair and the vice chair. How will they lead their board and expectations, and how will the board leadership utilize their superintendent for very specific school board executive work? The third section talks about the role of the superintendent and the job descriptions and duties that they should be able to expect their superintendent to carry out. The fourth section talks about the role of school board members as a whole, and it delineates their role as an individual school board member and the school board member together as one working body of people. And then lastly, the fifth section really highlights what happens if a school board member goes outside of those working agreements, and what happens if the superintendent goes outside of those working agreements, and who's ultimately responsible for ensuring accountability of everybody doing what they're supposed to do. Now, there's a way to do this in an extremely positive manner. First of all, when building this agreement, it must be collaborative. A superintendent should never just throw this stack of paper onto the school board's chair and say, here's the working agreements and this is what I expect, please sign this. This needs to be a collaborative effort, and I strongly recommend in the summertime, if you don't have one of these already, to really hold a school board workshop to say, hey, I want to create clear guidelines so that I can best serve you and do my job as your one single employee, but I also need to have clear parameters of what I can expect from you so that when crises emerge or when conflict or tension happens, we have a working document that we've mutually agreed upon to work through these processes. And in a lot of occasions, you can align the school board superintendent working agreement to current policy that you already have. Every state has guidelines on the role of a school board member, and every state has guidelines on the role of superintendent. And so as you create this working document of expectations, behaviors, and how you're going to serve and support each other, you can actually link some of these behavior expectations to the policy itself. This goes a long way because at the end of the day, it is your responsibility as superintendent to make sure that the school board remains at the 100,000-foot policy level. And so your ability to connect the day-to-day interactions between school board members and staff members, school board members and community members, school board members and principals, you can connect all of those things to the policy, ultimately allowing your board member to function in alignment with their sole expectations, duties, and responsibilities, while still allowing them to engage with the organization and doing so in a way that fulfills your expectations as the superintendent. But your ability to start every single school year revisiting, revising, and collaboratively working together sets your school year off to a great start. And in this case, when you have rogue school board members or you have different tensions in your relationship, this is also the beginning of the year opportunity to work through those tensions in a collaborative workshop setting to say, hey, here's what I need from you as a school board to fully utilize me, your one sole representative, in order for us to engage our parents and our employees. And if they have issues or they have different desires about what they want to do, this just proactively creates a great forum for a school board member to say, well, I really want to meet with principals monthly, or I want to make sure that I have one school district that I'm responsible, one school building, that I'm responsible for, and I can have the opportunity to check in with that. All of that's fine if that's what you want, if that's what your local school board wants to prioritize. But the difference is the school board member can't just go and schedule a meeting with that principal without their superintendent there. And so this forum and this agreement allows you to work through those processes to say, okay, if you really want each school board member to be responsible for one specific school, which is something I've done in the past, we no longer do that in our school district, but when I became the superintendent, that was an ongoing practice. Each school board member responsible for a school. That's awesome. But in the future, when the school board member meets or visits that particular school that they're in charge of, I'm going to be there too, because it's my responsibility to really be your entourage, the school board member, to make sure that the questions and the things that you want to see are being addressed. And I have the opportunity to support the building principal while also supporting the school board member at the same time. That's just one of many examples of specific local school district desires of school board members, but it is this working agreement that truly allows you, the superintendent, and the school board member to collaboratively build a local process. And once that's established and the school board member in the August or September board meeting votes to approve this working agreement, then it's signed by all 7 or 5 or 9 school board members, whatever you have in your school district, and the superintendent signs it. So when people either stub their toe or make a mistake, or when they go outside of these guidelines, you have a document to point to, and you can work with your board leadership to say, hey, this specific school board member did this, which is not in alignment with our agreement. And the cool part about this working agreement is then the board leadership can go to this agreement and it tells them exactly what to do if a school board member breaks that agreement. A great way to set yourself up for long-term success and for you to have the opportunity to start your school year with a crystal clear expectation of what each person is going to do in order to execute the mission, vision, and values of that school district. It's always important to remember and to frequently remind your school board members in a very kind way that they really have 4 responsibilities. The first responsibility is to establish the mission, vision, and values of the school district. And the board does that through a collaborative process of establishing a 3 or 5-year strategic plan. The second responsibility is to establish policy and guidelines, ultimately allowing the organization to run their daily operations through the compliance of state law and policies. The third responsibility of the school board is to hire and evaluate the superintendent to execute the mission, vision, and values, and make sure that the school district is in full compliance of the policies established by the school board. And then lastly, the school board is required to have financial oversight to make sure that the local taxpayer dollars are being spent in accordance with the strategic plan and in alignment with policy and law. That's it. Those are the 4 main responsibilities of the school board. So when they engage in different types of activities outside of those big 4 responsibilities, essentially the school board is acting out of bounds from your mutual agreements. But it is the responsibility of the superintendent to establish a system to allow school board members to stay engaged within the big 4 that I'm talking about, while at the same time giving them the opportunities to play in the system with supports from their superintendents. But it's paramount for the superintendent during that time to be able to explain why it's so important for the board members to stay within their role, how the superintendent is going to support them in being engaged inside the school system, while at the same time working through the processes, allowing everybody to be successful. Nothing is more confusing to a principal than when a board member just drops in. Nothing is more confusing to a teacher when the board member writes them an email asking them to do specific stuff. And so for organizational health, it is absolutely critical for the board members to stay at their appropriate level and use their superintendent to do the work of their wishes and requirements. And that's the duty that falls upon the superintendent. And superintendents who are successful in this work, the school board members leverage their superintendents to enact and execute their will through and in alignment with the mission, vision, and values of the strategic plan and in accordance with the board superintendent working relationship. Now you're probably thinking, but Ryan, how do I get these people to get inside that box where I have the ability to manage better their interactions with the staff? Great question. And here's the second part of our episode today, and that is, as the superintendent, it is critical that you are proactive at giving them opportunities under your control of ways that they can engage with the system. Like, for example, if you, the superintendent, are going to tour a school building or going to meet with the principal, the best advice would be to say, hey, I'm going to tour this elementary school today. Is anybody interested in joining me to be a part of that tour? Or another example, I'm going to be speaking at the city council tonight to give a school update to all the city commissioners. Would anybody like to come and join me to be a part of that presentation? And so this starts to build the bridge of opportunities where the superintendent is already attending these events anyways, and this gives the superintendent the opportunity to say, hey, I'm going to be here. Is anyone interested in coming? Or if you have a specific school board member that is, going above and just going around and doing these types of things, this is your opportunity to tie them in with you. Hey, I'm going to be speaking to the parent PTA group. Do you want to come and join me for this? Or I'm going to have a check-in with the principal. Do you want to come and join me for this? Because these are things that they're already doing just around you. So I would recommend you start doing the things that they're already doing and asking them to join you with them, giving both of you the opportunity as a team to come and meet with leaders, but it also starts to develop the buffer that you need to create between your employees and the school board member. And I'm telling you that if you can be consistent in that proactivity of communicating to board members where you're going to be and inviting them to come and join you and be a part of the processes, then over time, with that consistency, they will begin to back off because they trust that you're going to be executing their wills and their wishes as long as it's in alignment with policy, law, the strategic plan, and the other things that come along with those big four. And so I really encourage you to just start tomorrow in inviting board members to the external and internal events that every superintendent experiences on a daily basis. So let me give you an example of my week this week and interaction with school board members. I had a school board member who was very interested in seeing some of the changes and updates that they approved a few months ago for our alternative school, which is in downtown of the city which I serve. Obviously, I did not want this school board member to just go down and check it out on his own volition. And so I proactively scheduled a time at our alternative school. My assistant let them know that I'd be coming down to take a tour with this school board member so they can see the changes and improvements that we made to that specific academic setting. We went down there, had a great time. The teachers, the paraeducators, even the kids were prepared for this tour, giving ultimately the school board member, as he walked out, a fulfillment and satisfaction of seeing the specific things that he wanted to see, while at the same time being visible and feeling fulfilled that he was checking in on the process that the school board had taken action on just a couple of months ago. This was a big win for all parties. The alternative school got to show off the great things that were happening to their superintendent and a school board member, and the school board member walked away feeling like the things that they were investing in was truly making a difference. The very next day, we had our home opener baseball game on a brand new turf baseball field. In order to really recognize the board for their authorization of this very controversial and expensive purchase, I had 3 school board members throw out the first pitch of that game on the very first game of our turf field. This was a big win for them. It gave them the opportunity to be visible. It recognized and rewarded them for their investment in this as a school board member, and it satisfied their fulfillment of being able to be in front and center of the community and the parents of our school district and recognizing their work inside of that. Then on the next day, I had lunch with one specific board member who had concerns about some of the parent pickup things that were happening. And of course, these people represent the community. And so parents, when they experience frustration about very specific things, it's often that they communicate with their board member. Or I'm in a relatively smaller town where a lot of people are related, and it's just a small town feel. And so people just know our school board members personally and their friends. And so their first course of action, of course, is to go straight to the person who they think is going to make a difference. And so as this school board member was hearing some of these concerns, instead of them going to the principal and saying, hey, we need to fix this system, or instead of them writing to the vice principal that, hey, we need to do this very thing, board member to vice principal, that's a no-no. I had lunch with a specific board member. I asked specifically what the concerns of the citizens was, and I told him that I was going to then go and take care of this for him. And I was able to collaborate with our team, and I was able to close the loop back by saying, thank you for communicating this with me. Here's the things we're going to address to improve the efficiency of our parent pickup system. Thank you so much for being a great team member. We have addressed this issue, which was a win for all. I'm building trust in them that I'm going to execute on the concerns that they're hearing about from the concerned citizens, and we have the opportunity to move forward. Next week, I'm already planning, we have a school board member who works in a big private company. They're having a major corporate luncheon on a specific date. That board member asked if I would come with him as a just guest representative. And so I'm going to be going with the school board member to that luncheon, ultimately with the opportunity to, just be a part of what they're doing on a private and professional side as well. And so this is another proactive opportunity and evidence of trust that I've built, that a board member wants to take me along and show off what we're doing and in the relationship that we have on their work side of things, which is equally as impactful. And then lastly, I have a school board member who is running for re-election. They want to do everything they can to maximize their exposure and share with the community the great work that they're doing as a school board member in hopes of being re-elected. Knowing that that was a concern of this person, I invited them to participate in a podcast episode that I do where we could talk about our school finance, their role in really supporting all of the accomplishments and successes that our school district has had. And so just another great example of how proactively I've tried to see the needs, and they're unique and different needs of each and every single school board member. But in all of those examples that I gave, the only time the school board was present on campus was when they were with me. But the difference is I didn't wait for a problem to occur. I proactively communicated to them, this is where I'm going to be. Would any of you like to join me? Because the more they can be with you, the more they can see what's happening, and then you have the opportunity to communicate why it's happening and what strategies we're trying. And ultimately, over time, as you do these things together as a team, more and more trust is built. And I promise you, your board will start to back away from them just engaging themselves into situations because they have a superintendent they trust, and they're getting multiple opportunities to be with you to see the great works of things that are happening. And the third part of building a healthy school board relationship is also educating your leaders on protocols that they need to do to inform you of when there is a school board member interaction. Remember, the school board is focused on 4 core elements of their roles and responsibilities. They use their superintendent as their one employee and one representative to execute the mission, vision, values, the policy, and orchestrate the finances. And so anytime you have school board members engaging with people that doesn't utilize their person, the superintendent, that is out of bounds. But it's also at times extremely confusing to the employees. Who should I be working with? Why is this one school board member who's actually a citizen when they're acting by themselves telling me what to do or giving me advice on things that aren't necessarily relevant to the situation or circumstances at hand? And so what I've done with leaders inside my organization is I've created a 30-minute rule. And that is anytime a school board member interacts with a principal, a director, an assistant superintendent, whatever that is, they have 30 minutes to inform me that that interaction happens. Now, I'm not doing that because it's a got you, or if you don't, I'm going to reprimand you. This is not a punitive system that I'm putting in place, but it allows me to have knowledge of the interaction that happened, and then I can begin to smooth out any damage, any confusion, or really anything that was done. And so, for example, this hasn't happened in multiple years for me because of the processes we established. But in my first or second year, there were several occasions where board members were emailing the principals. And by establishing the 30-minute rule, they said, hey, Ryan, I just want you to know that this happened. Here's a forward of the email just so you're aware of it. And there's some occasions where I'm like, great, thanks so much for responding in a timely manner. I really appreciate it. But there's a couple occasions where I had to use the school board superintendent working document, relationship document, to let the school board chair know, hey, this happened and we had an agreement inside of this. I'm obviously going to speak to that individual school board member who did this, but I just want you to be aware of it because at the end of the day, they also have to police themselves. And so if it was unable to be rectified between me and that one school board member, I need to be able to depend on my school board chair to follow up later to say, hey, you're not supposed to be emailing the principals. You email Ryan, the superintendent, and he will do the work for you. That's his job. And it really is as simple as that. And so by establishing the 30-minute rule really gives you the opportunity to smooth out anything that happened between the principal and the school board, but it also gives you the opportunity to see the whole field. Because as you try to slowly over time adjust the behaviors of your school board team to work as a fully functioning team, leveraging you, you have to know what's going on. And the 30-minute rule, I strongly recommend to you to communicate to your leaders because you got to start changing those behaviors. And the only way to do that is to get updated information in a way that allows you to respond in an appropriate manner. Hey, it is never too late for you to make adjustments to improve the relationship between yourself and your school board. These 3 strategies of creating a working document, proactively trying to engage your board under your leadership, and educating your leaders on how to respond to you when there is school board and employee interaction are 3 ways that will help you build a stronger, more professional, and aligned relationship between your school board team. I know there are so many variations of circumstances that each of you are experiencing. You may have one political ideology and you're trying to execute that while you're working with a board with a completely opposite ideology. And all of those things are real, they're hard, and they're tough. You may have school board members that got elected specifically to eliminate you. And my recommendation to you is to begin to get yourself closer with those group of people so that you can better understand what their desire is and what their wishes are for their local school district. And you can hopefully find collaborative ways to execute their wishes while still being aligned to law, policy, and the school district's overall and overarching strategic plan. But remember, the community elected them. Their responsibility is to ensure that their school district reflects your community's values, and they hired you to execute those values under the policy and law and oversee the ultimate finances of that. And so being a superintendent is tough because you work for non-education experts, but you do work for them. They do not work for you. So make a great agreement, proactively get them involved in ways that makes them feel good about what they're doing. And then lastly, educate your staff on how best to respond and support your school board members. I wish you the best of luck. This is the toughest one to work through, but great superintendents have great relationships with their boards, and it's not too late for you to establish the same. Best of luck this week, and we'll see you next week.